Gentlemen, we're in the stream again. Chapter 5. When next morning at 11 o'clock, punctually, Raskolnikov went into the department of the investigation of criminal cases and sent his name in to the Porfiry Petrovich. He was surprised at being kept waiting so long. It was at least 10 minutes before he was summoned. He had expected that they would pounce upon him, but he stood in the waiting room, and people who apparently had nothing to do with him continually, continually passing to and fro before him. In the next room, which looked like an office, several clerks were sitting writing, and obviously they had no notion who or what Raskolnikov might be. He looked uneasily and suspiciously about him to see whether there was not some guard, some mysterious watch being kept on him to prevent his escape. But there was nothing so. He saw only the faces of clouds, absorbed in petty details. Then other people. No one seemed to have any concern with him. He might go where he liked for them. The conviction grew stronger in him that if that enigmatic man of yesterday, that phantom sprung out of the earth, had seen everything, they would have they would not have let him stand and wait like that. And would they have waited till he elected to appear at 11? Either the man had not yet given information, or or he simply knew nothing, had seen nothing. And how could he have seen anything? And so, all that had happened to him the day before was again a phantom exaggerated by his sick and overstrained imagination. This conjecture had begun to grow strong the day before. In the midst of all his alarm and despair, thinking it all over now and preparing for a fresh conflict, he was suddenly aware that he was trembling, and he felt a rush of indignation at the thought that he was trembling with fear at facing that hateful Porfiry Petrovich. What he declared, what he dreaded above all, was meeting that man again. He hated him with an intense, unmitigated hatred, and was afraid his hatred might betray him. His indignation was such that he ceased trembling at once. He made ready to go in with a cold and arrogant bearing and vowed to himself to keep as silent as possible, to watch and listen, and, for once, at least to control his overstrained nerves. At that moment, he was summoned to Porfiry Petrovich. He found Porfiry Petrovich alone in his study. His study was a room neither large nor small, furnished with a large writing table that stood before a sofa, upholstered in a checked material, a bureau, a bookcase in the corner, and several chairs, all government furniture of polished yellow wood. In the further wall, there was a closed door. Beyond it, there were no doubt other things. On Raskolnikov's entrance, Porfiry Petrovich had at once closed the door by which he had come in, and they remained alone. He met his visitor with an apparently genial and good-tempered air. It was only a few minutes. It was only after a few minutes that Raskolnikov saw signs of a sudden awkwardness in him, as though he had been thrown out of his reckoning or caught in something very secret. Porfiry Petrovich holding out both hands to him with an apparently genial and good-tempered air. Ah, my dear fellow, here you are, in our domain. Come, sit down, old man. Or perhaps you don't like to be called my dear fellow or old man. Tout cut. Please don't think it too familiar. Here, on the sofa, Raskolnikov sat down, keeping his eyes fixed on me. In our domain, the apologies for familiarity, the French phrase tout court were all characteristic, characteristic signs. Raskolnikov, thinking suspiciously to himself. He held out both hands to me, but he did not give me one. He drew it back in time. Both were watching each other, but when their eyes met, quick as lightning, they looked away. Raskolnikov, I brought you this paper about the watch. Here it is. Is it all right? Or shall I copy it again? Porfiry Petrovich, as though in haste, taking the paper and looking at it with rapidity before laying it on the table. What? A paper? Oh, yes, yes, don't be uneasy. It's all right. Yes, it's all right. Nothing more is needed. A minute later, when he was talking of something else, he took it from the table and put it on his bureau. Raskolnikov beginning again. I believe you said yesterday you would like to question me formally about my acquaintance with the murdered women. Raskolnikov thinking in a flash. Why did you put in I believe? Raskolnikov thinking a second flash, feeling his uneasiness grow to monstrous proportions. Why am I so uneasy at having put in that I believe? And he suddenly felt that his uneasiness at the mere contact with Porfiry, at the first words, at the first blows, had grown in an instant to monstrous proportions, and that this was fearfully dangerous. His nerves were quivering, his emotion was increasing. Raskolnikov thinking, it's bad, it's bad. I shall say too much again. Porfiry Petrovich muttering, moving to and fro about the table without any apparent aim, as it were making dashes towards the window, the bureau, and the table. It was a moment avoiding Raskolnikov's suspicious glance. Then again, standing still and looking him straight in the face. Yes, yes, yes. There's no hurry. There's no hurry. There's no hurry, there's no hurry. His fat, round little figure looked very strange, like a ball rolling from one side to another and rebounding back. Porfiry Petrovich offering his visitor a cigarette. We have plenty of time. You smoke? Hello, you're on. Here, a cigarette. You know I'm receiving you here, but my own quarters are through here. My own quarters are through there, my government quarters. But I'm living outside all the time. I had to have some repairs done here. It's almost finished now. Government quarters, are a capital thing. What are you saying? Raskolnikov looking at him almost ironically. Yes, a capital thing. Porfiry Petrovich repeating as though as he had just thought of something quite different. Then suddenly staring at Raskolnikov, stopping short to step from him and almost shouting. A capital thing. A capital thing, yes, a capital thing. This stupid repetition was too congruous and in its ineptitude with the serious, brooding, and enigmatic glance he turned upon his visitor. But this stirred Raskolnikov's spleen more than ever, and he could not resist an ironical and rather impatient challenge. Raskolnikov asking suddenly, looking almost insolently at him and taking a kind of pleasure in his own insolence. Tell me, please, I believe it's a sort of legal rule, a sort of legal tradition for all investigation lawyers to begin their attack from afar with a trivial or at least an irrelevant subject, so as to encourage or rather to divert the man they are cross examining to disarm his case and then all at once to give him an unexpected knockdown blow with some fatal question. Isn't that so? It's a sacred tradition. Mentioned, I fancy in all the manuals of the art. Porfiry Petrovich, screwing up his eyes and winking with a good humor, craftily passing over his face. Yes, yes. Why do you imagine that word? Why I spoke of German cars, huh? And as he said, this Porfiry Petrovich screwed up his eyes and winked. A good-humored, crafty look passed over his face. The wrinkles on his forehead were smoothed out. His eyes contracted, his features broadened, and he suddenly went off into a nervous, prolonged laugh, shaking all over and looking Raskolnikov straight in the face. The latter forced himself to laugh, too, but when Porfiry, seeing that he was laughing, broke into such a guffaw that he turned almost crimson. Raskolnikov's repulsion overcame all precaution. He left off laughing, scowled, and stared at with hatred for Friday, keeping his eyes fixed on him while his intensely prolonged laughter lasted. There was lack of precaution on both sides. However, for Porfiry Petrovich seemed to be laughing in his visitor's face and to be very little disturbed at the annoyance with which the visitor received it. The later fact was significant in Raskolnikov's eyes. He saw that Porfiry Petrovich had not been embarrassed just before either, but that he, Raskolnikov, had perhaps fallen into a trap. That there must be something, some motive here unknown to him, that perhaps everything was in readiness and in another moment would break upon him. He went straight to the point at once, rose from his seat and took a cab. Raskolnikov, resolutely, though with considerable irritation, laying special stress on the word inquires, feeling angry at once and shouting for irritation. Porfiry Petrovich, yesterday you expressed a desire that I should come to you for some inquiries. I come, and if you have anything to ask me, ask it, and if not, allow me to withdraw. I have no time to spare. I have to be at the funeral of that man who has run over, of whom you know also. I am sick of it all, do you hear? And have long been. It partly what made me ill. In short, kindly examine me, or let me go. Once. And if you must examine me, do so in the proper form. I will not allow you to do so otherwise, and so meanwhile, goodbye, as we have evidently nothing to keep us now. Porfiry Petrovich, cackling the change of tone, instantly leaving off laughing, fidgeting from place to place, and forcibly making Raskolnikov sit down. Good heavens! What do you mean? What shall I question you about? Please don't disturb yourself. There's no hurry. There's no hurry. It's all nonsense. Oh no, I'm very glad you come to see me at last. I look upon you simply as a visitor, and after my confounded laughter, please excuse it, Rodin Romanovich. Rodin Romanovich? That is your name? It's my nerves. You tickled me so with very observation. I assure you, sometimes I shake with laughter like an India rubber ball for half an hour at a time. I'm often afraid of an attack of paralysis. Do sit down, please do, or I shall think you're angry. Raskolnikov did not speak. He listened, watching him. Still frowning angrily, he did sit down but still held his cap. Porfiry Petrovich, moving about the room and again avoiding his visitor's eyes. I must tell you one thing about myself. My dear Vladimir Romanovich, you see I'm a bachelor, a man of no consequence and not used to society. Besides, I have nothing before me. I'm sad. I'm running to seed. And have you noticed, Vladimir Romanovich, that in our Petersburg circles, if two clever men meet who are not intimate, but respect each other, like you and me, it takes them half an hour before they can find a subject for conversation. They're dumb. They sit opposite to each other and feel awkward. Everyone has subjects of conversation. Ladies, for instance, people in high society always have their subjects of conversation. Chefs is a gear, but people of the middle sort like us, thinking, thinking people that is are always tongue-tied and awkward. What is the reason of it? Whether it is the lack of public interest or whether it is we are so honest we don't want to deceive one another, I do not know. What do you think? Do put down your cap. It looks as if you're just going. It makes me uncomfortable. Uncomfortable. I'm so delighted. Osvaldo put down his cap and continued listening in silence with his serious frowning face to the other way and complete terror of Porfiry Petrovich. Raskolnikov, singing to himself. Does he really want to distract my attention from with his silly babble? Porfiry Petrovich carrying on, excuse driven and running up and down. I can't offer you coffee here, but why not spend 5 minutes with a friend? If you know all these official duties, please don't mind my running up and down. Excuse it. My dear fellow, I'm very much afraid of offending you, but exercise is absolutely essential for me. I'm always sitting and so glad to be moving about, or for 5 minutes. I suffer from my sedentary life. I always intend to join a gymnasium. They say that officers of all ranks during private councils may have been skipping there. There you have it, modern science. Yes, yes. But as for my duties here, inquiries and all such formalities you mentioned, inquires yourself just now. I assure you, these interrogations are sometimes more embarrassing for the interrogator than for the interrogated. You made the observation yourself just now, very aptly and wittily. Raskolnikov had made no observation of the kind. One gets into a regular model, one keeps hopping on the same note like a drum. The risk of being reformed, and we shall be called by a different name, at least. Hehehe. And as for legal tradition, as you so wittily call it, I thoroughly agree with you. Every prisoner on trial, even the rudest peasant, knows that they begin by disarming him with irrelevant questions, as you so happily put it, and then deal him with a knockdown. Will deal him a knockdown blow. Hey, your very tedious comparison. Well, serious comparison. Hee. Hey, hey. Fuck. So you really imagined that I meant by government quarters? Hey, hey. You're an ironical person. Come, come, I won't go on. By the way, yes, I one more leads to another. You you spoke of formality just now. A proposal of the inquiry, But what's the usual formality? In many cases, it's nonsense. Sometimes one has a friendly chat and gets a good deal more out of it. One can always fall back on formality. Allow me to assure you. After all, what does it amount to? An examining lawyer cannot be bounded by formality at every step. The work of an investigation is, so to speak, a free art in its own way, provided Petrus to breathe a moment. He had simply babbled on, uttering empty phrases, letting slip a few enigmatic words, again reverting to incoherence. He was almost running about the room, moving his fat little legs quicker and quicker, looking at the ground with his right hand behind his back, while his left making gesticulations that were extraordinarily incongruous with his words. Rascal suddenly noticed as he ran about the room, he seemed twice to stop for a moment near the door, as though he were listening. Right? Raskolnikov thinking to himself, is he expecting anything? Provided Petrovich, beginning gaily, looking with extraordinary simplicity at Raskolnikov. You are suddenly quite right about it. Suddenly quite right and laughing so wildly at our legal forms. He some of these elaborate psychological methods are exceedingly ridiculous and perhaps useless if one adheres too closely to the forms. Yes, I'm talking of forms again. Well, if I recognize, or more strictly speaking, if I suspect someone or other to be a criminal in any case entrusted to me, you are reading for the law, of course. Read Romanovich? It's going to go, yes, I was. Provided George. Well, then it is a precedent for you for the future. Though don't suppose, though don't suppose I should venture to instruct you after the articles you published about crime. No, I simply make bold to state it by way of fact. If I took this man or that for a criminal, why, I ask, should I worry him prematurely? Even though I had evidence against him. In one case, I may be bound, for instance, to arrest a man at once, but another may be in quite a different position, you know? So why shouldn't I let him walk about town a bit? Hey, hey. But I see you don't quite understand. So I'll give you a clearer example. If I put him in prison too soon, I may very likely give him, so to speak, moral support. He laughing. Raskolnikov had no idea of laughing. He was sitting with compressed lips, his feverish eyes fixed on Porfiry Petrovich. Porfiry Petrovich. Yet that is the case with some types of neuromancy, especially for men are so different. You say evidence. Well, there may be evidence, but evidence, can generally be taken two ways. I'm an examining lawyer and a weak man. I confess it. I should like to make a proof, so to say, mathematically clear. I should like to make a chain of evidence, such as twice or two or four. It ought to be direct, irrefutable proof. And if I shut him up too soon, even though I might be convinced he was the man, I should very likely to be depriving myself of the means of getting further evidence against him. And how? By giving him, so to speak, a definite position, I shall put him out of suspense and set his mind at rest, so that he will retreat into his shell. They say that the Sevastopol, soon after Alma, the clever people were in a terrible fright that the enemy would attack openly and take Sevastopol at once. But when they saw that the enemy preferred a regular siege, they were delighted, I'm told, and reassured. For the thing would drag on for 2 months at least. You're laughing. You don't believe me again. Of course, you're right too. You're right. You're right. These are special cases, I admit. But you must observe this, my dear Roger Romanovich. The general case, the case for which all legal forms and rules are intended, for which they are calculated and laid down in books, doesn't exist at all. For the reason that every case, every crime, for instance, so soon as it actually occurs, at once becomes a thoroughly special case, and sometimes a case unlike any that's gone before. Very comic cases of that sort sometimes occur. If I leave one man quite alone, if I don't touch him and don't worry him, but let him know or at least suspect every moment that I know all about it, and I'm watching him day and night, and if he is in continual suspicion and terror, he'll be bound to lose his head. He'll come of himself, or maybe do something which will make it as plain as twice two or four. It's delightful. It may be so with a simple peasant, but with one of our sort, an intelligent man, cultivated on his inside, it's a dead subject. For my dear fellow, it's a very important matter to know on what side a man is cultivated. And then there are nerves. There are nerves. You have all of them. Why they are all sick, nervous and irritable. And then how they all suffer from spleen. That I assure you is a regular gold mine for us. And it's so excited to me. He's running about the town free. Let him walk about for a bit. I know well enough that I caught him and that he won't escape me. Where could he escape to? Hehe. Abroad, perhaps. A Pole will escape abroad, but not here. Especially as I am watching and have taken measures. Will he escape into the depths of the country, perhaps? But you know, peasants live there. Real Russian peasants. A modern cultivated man would prefer prison to living with such strangers as our peasants. Hehe. But that's all nonsense. And on the surface, it's not merely that he has nowhere to run to, he's psychologically unable to escape me. What an expression. Through law of nature, he can't escape me if he had anywhere to go. Have you seen a butterfly around a candle? That's how he'll keep circling and circling around me. Freedom will lose his directions. He will begin to brood. He will weave a tangle around himself. He will worry himself to death. What's more, he will provide me with a mathematical proof. If I only give him long enough in trouble, and he will keep circling around me, getting nearer and nearer, and then flap, he will fly straight into my mouth and I'll swallow him. And that will be very amusing. You don't believe me? Raskolnikov made no reply. He sat pale and motionless, still gazing with the same intensity into the provided face. Raskolnikov thinking to himself, turning cold. It's a lesson. This is beyond the cat playing with a mouse, like yesterday. He can be showing off his power with no motive, prompting me. He's far too clever for that. He must have another subject. What is it? It's all nonsense, my friend. You are pretending to scare me. You have no proofs, and the man I saw had no real existence. You simply want to make me lose my head, to work me up beforehand, and so to crush me. But you are wrong. You won't do it. But why give me such a hint? Is he reckoning on my shattered nerves? No, my friend, you're wrong. You won't do it, even though you have some trap for me. Let us see what you have in store for me. And he braced himself to face a terrible and unknown ordeal. At times he longed to fall on Porphyry and strangle him. This anger was what he dreaded from the beginning. He felt that his parched lips were flagged with foam. His heart was throbbing, but he was still determined not to speak till the right moment. He realized that this was the best policy in his position, because instead of saying too much, he would be irritating his enemy by silence and provoking him into speaking too freely. Anyhow, this was what he hoped for. Fighter Petrovich, getting more and more lively, chuckling at every instance, again pacing around the room. No, I see you don't believe. You think I'm playing a harmless joke on you? And to be sure, you're right. God has given me a figure that awakened none but comic ideas in other people. A buffoon. What, let me tell you. And I repeated, excuse an old man, my dear Rudin Manovich. You're a man, still young, so to say, in your first youth, and you put intellect above everything, like all young people. Playful wit and abstract arguments fascinate you. Yeah. And that's for all the world like the old ocean of Chris grass. As far as I can judge of military matters, that is, on paper they had beaten Napoleon and taken him prisoner. And there in their study, they worked it all out in the cleverest fashion. But look, you, General Max surrendered with all his army. Hey, hey, hey. I see, Rodermanovich. You're laughing at a civilian like me, taking examples out of military history. But I can help it. It's my weakness. I'm fond of military science, and I'm ever so fond of reading all military histories. I certainly missed my proper career. I ought to have been in the army. Upon my word is I ought. I shouldn't have been a Napoleon, but I might have been a major. Hehe. Well, I'll tell you the whole truth, my dear fellow, about this special case. I mean, actual fact and a man's temperament. My dear sir, are weighty matters, and it's astonishing how they sometimes deceive the sharpest calculation. I listen to them all. Am speaking seriously, Ron Romanovich. Moreover, I'm a candid man. Am I a candid man or not? What do you say? I fancy I really am. Oh, I tell you these things for nothing and don't even expect a reward for it. Hey, hey, well, to proceed, good in my opinion is a splendid thing. It is, so to say, an adornment of nature and a consolation of life. What tricks it can play, so that it sometimes it's hard for a correct examining lawyer to know where he is, especially when he's liable to be carried away by his own fancy too. For you know he is a man after all. But the poor fellow is saved by the criminal's temperament. Worse luck for him. But young people carried away by their own weight don't think of that when they overstep our obstacles, as you wittily and cleverly expressed yesterday. He will lie. That is, the man who is a special case, the incognito, and he will lie well in the clever fashion. You might think he would triumph and enjoy the fruits of his wit, but at the most interesting, the most flagrant moment, he will faint. Of course, there may be illness in the stuffy room as well. But anyway, he's given us the idea. He lied incomparably, but he didn't reckon on his temperament. That's what betrays him. Another time, he will be carried away by his playful wit into making fun of the man who suspects him. He will turn pale, as it were, on purpose to mislead. But his paleness will be too natural, too much like the real thing. Again, he has given us an idea. Though his questioner may be deceived at first, he will think differently the next day if he is not a fool. And of course, it is like that at every step. He puts himself forward where he is not wanted, speaks continually when he ought to keep silent, brings in all sorts of illogical allusions, hey, hey, comes and asks, why didn't you take it me long ago, hey, hey, hey. And that can happen, yeah, yeah, and that can happen, with the cleverest man, the psychologist, the literary man. The temperament reflects everything like a mirror. Gaze into it, admire what you see. Why are you so pale, Raj? Is the room stuffy? Shall I open the window? Raskolnikov, crying out, suddenly breaking into a laugh. Oh, don't trouble. Please don't trouble. The fighter stood facing him, paused a moment, and suddenly he too laughed. Raskolnikov got up from the sofa, abruptly checking his hysterical laughter. Raskolnikov speaking loudly and distinctly, though his legs trembled, with trembling lips and eyes glowing with fury, bringing his fist down on the table and shouting, Porfiry Petrovich, I see clearly at last that you actually suspect me of murdering that old woman and her sister Lizaveta. Let me tell you, for my part, that I'm sick of this. If you find that you have a right to prosecute me legally, to arrest me, then prosecute me, arrest me. But I will not let myself be jeered to my face and worded. I won't allow it. Do you hear that, Porfiry Petrovich? I won't allow it. Porfiry Petrovich, crying out, apparently quite frightened. Good heavens, what does it mean? Lord Romanovich, my dear fellow, what is the matter with you? Raskolnikov shouting again. I won't allow it. Porfiry Petrovich, whispering in horror, bringing his face close to Raskolnikov's. Hush, my dear man, they'll hear and come in. Just think, what could we say to them? Raskolnikov repeating mechanically, speaking in a sullen whisper. I won't allow it. I won't allow it. Porfiry turned quickly and ran to open the window. Porfiry Petrovich running to the door to call for water, then rushing up to him with a decanter of water, whispering, Some fresh air, and you must have some water. My dear fellow, you're ill. Come, drink a little. It will be sure to do you good. Porfiry Petrovich's alarm and sympathy were so natural that Raskolnikov was silent and began looking at him with wild curiosity. He did not take the water, however. Porfiry Petrovich forcing him to take the glass. Roy Romanovich, my dear fellow, you'll drive yourself out of your mind, I assure you. Yeah. Have some water, to drink a little. He forced him to take the glass. Raskolnikov raised it mechanically to his lips, but set it on the table again with disgust. Porfiry Petrovich crackling with friendly sympathy, though still looking rather disconcerted. Yes, you had a little attack. You'll bring back your illness again. My dear fellow, good heavens, you must take more care of yourself. Dmitri Prokofyevich was here, came to see me yesterday. I have a nasty, ironical temper. What they made of it? Good heavens! He came yesterday after your bed. We dined, and he talked and talked away, and I could only throw up my hands in despair. Did he come for you? But do sit down, for mercy's sake, sit down. Raskolnikov answered him sharply. No, not for me. But I knew he went to you and why he went. Porfiry Petrovich, you knew? Raskolnikov, I knew. What of it? What of it? Porfiry Petrovich. Why this, Romanovich? That I know more than that about you. I know about everything. I know how you went to take a flat at night when it was dark, how you rang the bell and asked about the blood, so that the workman and the poor did not know what to make of it. Yes, I understand your state of mind at that time, but you will drive yourself mad like that. Upon my word, you will lose your head. You are full of generous indignation at the wrongs you received, first from destiny and then from the police officers. And so you rush from one thing to another to force them to speak out and make an end to it of all. End to it of all. Because you are sick of all this suspicion and foolishness. That's so, isn't it? I've guessed how you feel, haven't I? Only in that way you lose your head. Assuming he's too good a man for such a position. You must know that. You're ill, and he is good, and your illness is infectious for him. I'll tell you about it. When you are more yourself, but do sit down. For goodness sake, please rest. You look shocking. Do sit down. Raskolnikov sat down. He no longer shivered. He was hot all over. In amazement, he listened with strained attention to Porfiry Petrovich, who still seemed frightened as he looked after him, with friendly solicitude. But he did not believe a word he said. Though he felt a strange inclination to believe, Porfiry's unexpected was about the flag, utterly overwhelmed him. Raskolnikov thinking suddenly to himself, how can it be he knows about me the flag then? He tells it me himself. Fire Petro is going on quickly. Yes, in our legal practice, there was a case almost exactly similar, a case of morbid psychology. A man confessed to a murder and how he kept it up. It was a regular hallucination. He brought forward facts he imposed upon everyone and why. He had been partly, but only partly, unintentionally the cause of a murder, and when he knew that he had given the murderers the opportunity, he sank into dejection. It got on his mind and turned his brain. He began imagining things and he persuaded himself that he was the murderer. But at last, the High Court of Appeal went into it, and the poor fellow was acquitted, put in proper case care. Thanks to the Court of Appeal. Why, my dear fellow, you may drive yourself to delirium if you have the impulse to work upon nerves, to go ringing bells at night and asking about blood. I've studied all this morbid psychology in my practice, and many sometimes tempted to jump out of a window or a bell fright. The same with bell ringing, it's all illness, Romanovich. You have begun to neglect your illness. You should consult an experienced doctor. What's the good of that fat fellow? You are lightheaded. You were delirious when you did all this. For a moment, Raskolnikov felt everything going wrong. Raskolnikov flashed into his mind. Is it possible? Is it possible that he is still lying? It can be. It can be. It can be. He rejected that idea, feeling to what a degree of fury it might drive him, feeling that that fury might drive him mad. Raskolnikov crying out, straining every faculty to penetrate Porphyry's game. I was not delirious. I knew what I was doing. I was fighting myself. You hear, Petrovich? Yes, I hear and understand. You said yesterday you were not delirious. You are particularly emphatic about it. I understand all you can tell me. Yeah. Listen, Romanovich, my dear fellow, if you are actually a criminal or were somehow mixed up in this damnable business, would you insist that you were not delirious, but in full possession of your faculties, and so emphatically, persistently, would it be possible, quite impossible, to my thinking, if you had anything on your conscience, you certainly ought to insist that you were delirious. That's so, isn't it? There was a note of slyness in his firing. Raskolnikov drew back on the sofa as Porphyry bent over him and stared in silent perplexity. Porphyry Petrovich, another thing about resuming him. You certainly ought to have said that he came of his own accord, to have concealed your part in it, but you don't conceal it. You lay stress on his comment at your investigation. Raskolnikov had not done so. A chill went down his back. Raskolnikov saying slowly and weakly, twisting his lips and twisting his smile, staring at him in the light of intense hatred in his eyes. You keep telling lies. You are trying again to show that you know all my game. That you know all I shall say beforehand. You want to frighten me, or you are simply laughing at me. You keep lying. You know perfectly well that the best course for the criminal is to tell the truth as nearly as possible, to conceal as little as possible. I don't believe you, replied Petrovich, but literally. What a willing person you are. There's no catching you. You're a perfect monomania. So you don't believe me, but still you do believe me. You believe a quarter. I'll soon make you believe the whole because I have a sincere liking for you and generously wish you good. Raskolnikov's lips trembled. Porphyry Petrovich touching Raskolnikov's arm. Genially. Yes, I do. You must take care of your illness. Besides, your mother and sister are here now. You must think of them. You must soothe and comfort them, and you do nothing but frighten them. Raskolnikov, what has that to do with you? How do you know it? What concern is it of yours? You are keeping watch on me and want to let me know it? Porphyry Petrovich. Good heavens, why? I learnt it all from you yourself. You don't notice that in your excitement you tell me and others everything. To resume him too, I learned a number of interesting details yesterday. No, you interrupted me, but I must tell you what. For you I must tell you that for all your wit, your suspiciousness makes you lose the common sense view of things. To turn to bell ringing, for instance, I am examining lawyer have betrayed a precious thing like that, a real fact, for it is a fact worth having. And you see nothing in it? Why, if I had the slightest suspicion of you, should I have acted like that? No, I should first have disarmed your suspicions and not let you see I knew of that fact. Should have diverted your attention, and suddenly have dealt you a knock down blow. Your expression, saying, and what you were you doing, sir? Pray at 10 or nearly 11 at murdered woman's flat, and why did you ring the bell? Why did you ask for blood? And why did you invite the porters to go with you to the police station? To the lieutenant, that's how I ought to have acted if I had grain of suspicion of you. I ought to have taken your evidence in due form, searched your lodgings, and perhaps arrested you. Two, so I have no suspicion of you. Since I have not done that, but you can look at it normally and you see nothing, I say again, your response started that Raskolnikov started to show that Profile Patrol could not fail to perceive it. Raskolnikov crying out, "You are lying all the while. I don't know you object, but you are lying. You did not speak like that just now. I cannot be mistaken." Porfiry Petrovich repeating, apparently incensed, preserving a good humor and ironical face, as though he were not in the least concerned at Raskolnikov's opinion of him. I'm lying, I'm lying, I'm lying. But how did I treat you just now? I, the examining lawyer, prompting you and giving you every means for your defense. Illness, I said, delirium, enduring, melancholy, and the police officers and all the rest of it. Though, indeed, all those psychological means of defense are not very reliable and cut both ways. Illness, delirium, I don't remember, that's all right. But why, my good sir, in your illness and in your delirium were you haunted by just those delusions and not by any others? There may have been others. Hey. Raskolnikov looked heartily, and contemptuously at him. Raskolnikov, speaking loudly and furiously, rising to his feet and in so doing pushing Porfiry back a little. Briefly, I want to know, do you acknowledge me perfectly free from suspicion or not? Tell me, Porfiry Petrovich, tell me once for all and make haste. Porfiry Petrovich crying out with a perfectly good humored, sly and composed face. What business I am having with you? Why do you want to know? Why do you want to know so much since they haven't begun to worry you? Why you are like a child asking for matches? And why are you so uneasy? Why do you force yourself upon us? Hey. अरे हे मत कर नल्ले. Raskolnikov crying out furiously. I repeat that I can put up with it. Porfiry Petrovich interrupted. With what? Insanity? Raskolnikov shouting, bringing his fist down on the table again. Don't jeer at me. I won't have it. I tell you, I won't have it. I can't and I won't. Do you hear? You hear? Porfiry Petrovich, whispering to stamps, strongly frowning, and for once laying aside all mystification without the look of all romantic nature. Hush, they'll overhear. I warn you seriously. Take care of yourself. I'm not joking. But this was only for an instant. Raskolnikov, bewildered, suddenly fell into actual frenzy, but strange to say, he again obeyed the command to speak quietly. Though he was in a paroxysm of fury, Raskolnikov whispering instantly, recognizing with hatred that he could not help obeying the command. I will not allow myself to be tortured. Arrest me, search me, kindly act in due form and don't play with me, don't dare. Porfiry Petrovich, interrupting with the same sly smile, as it were, nodding with enjoyment over Raskolnikov. Enjoyment over Raskolnikov, Porfiry Petrovich says, don't worry about the form. I invited you to see me quite in a friendly way, Raskolnikov. I don't want your friendship, and I spit on it. You hear? Here, I take my cap and go. If you say now, if you mean to arrest me. Took his cap and went to the door. Provided Patrol chuckling again, taking him by the arm and stopping him at the door, becoming more playful and good humored. And want to see my little surprise? He seemed to become more playful and good humored, which maddened Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov, standing still and looking at Porfiry, laughed. What surprise? Porfiry Petrovich pointing to the locked door. My little surprise, it's sitting there behind the door. I loved him in that he should escape. Raskolnikov, what is it? Where what? Raskolnikov walked to the door and would have opened it, but it was locked. Porfiry, bring a key out of his pocket. It's locked. Here's the key. Raskolnikov, roaring without restraint, rushing at Porfiry, who retreated the other door, not at all alarmed. You are lying, you lie! You damned Punchinello! You damned Punchinello! Punchinello! I understand it all. You're lying and mocking so that I may betray myself too. Porfiry shrugged. Why you could not betray yourself any further? My dear Romanovich, you're in a passion. Don't shout. I shall call the clerks. भाई थोड़ा सा रहता है ये भी सेंड कर लेते हैं वाओ इट्स गॉड व्हाट इज गॉड You're lying, call the clerks. You know I was ill and I tried to work me into a frenzy to make me betray myself. That was your object. Produce your facts. Understand it all. You have no evidence. You have only read rubbishly suspicions like Zamatov's. You knew my character. You wanted to drive me to fury and then to knock me down with priests and deputies. Are you waiting for them? What are you waiting for? Where are they? Produce them. Porfiry, actually listening at the door through which their noise could be heard. Why deputies, my good man? What things people will imagine, and to do so would not be acting in form, as you say. You don't know the business, my dear fellow, and there's no escaping for, as you see. I'm just going to go crying out. They are coming. You have sent for them. You expected them. Well, produce them all. Your deputies, your witnesses, what you like. I'm ready. But at this moment, a strange incident occurred. Something so unexpected that neither Raskolnikov nor Porfiry could have looked for such a conclusion to their interview. Finish, damn it! यार कितना लंबा हो गया